Welcome, everyone. We welcome you to our discussion on digital inclusion and disabilities. My name is Josie Lake, and I am the Interim Program Partnership Manager here at GEO Nova Scotia. Over the next hour, we're going to discuss how digital inclusion impacts people with disabilities, what's happening now, and what are some opportunities for the future. So now, let's meet our guests. So our first panelist is Isaiah Doucet from Prescott Group. Thank you for being here today, Isaiah. Why don't you tell us a little bit about where you're joining us from, what your role with the Prescott Group is, and what you've been working on lately?
Yeah, hey, thank you so much, Josie. I'm so excited to be a part of the panel today. Like you said, my name is Isaiah Doucet. I currently work for Prescott Group. I am our employment and program development specialist, which is a really cool role, and I get to utilize my talents in lots of different ways here. I am our lead job developer here on site, and I also run all of our pre-employment training programs. Um, we've also just in the last year started working with high school students who have intellectual and developmental disabilities. So they've had an opportunity to come on site to do some pre-employment training to get them ready to enter the world of employment post high school. And I also get to do a lot of program development work, working one-on-one with participants here at Prescott Group who have intellectual or developmental disabilities, and helping them find creative and innovative solutions to whatever problems or issues they're currently dealing with. We've had a lot of success through our partnership with GEO Nova Scotia over the last year and a half now. We've been able to provide every student of our Saturday Job program a Chromebook and a headset, which is such a valuable tool for them to use as they move forward and work towards accomplishing their employment goals. We've also been able to help participants here. I sat in on the community services panel earlier today, and they had talked about a story that I've kind of experienced here at Prescott. So we've had two young ladies here who don't communicate verbally. And so through GEO Nova Scotia, we've been able to provide them each an iPad and the Proloquo to Go app, which again has been such a valuable tool. And it's been really great seeing these ladies be able to use these resources and communicate in really meaningful ways with the rest of the community here at Prescott. So yeah, we're always coming up with new and innovative programs here at Prescott, and I'm so excited that that's how I get to spend my time.
Thanks, Isaiah.
Thank
We
you.
certainly appreciate new and innovative. We work hard to do the same, and we really value the work that you all do. So next guest is Charles, and I'm sorry, I'm probably not going to do this well. Levasseur, is that awesome? Great. And you're joining us from the Neil Squire Society. So a little bit more about you, Charles, your role, and maybe where you're coming in from, and what have you been working on lately? Oh, I think you're on mute. There we go, I think. I think I hear you now. No.
Okay.
Hi. I'm not sure what's going on there, Charles. Maybe it's the headset. Can we come back to you in just a moment?
Yeah.
All right, perfect. Randy, how about you? You're joining us from the Department of Community Services.
I am, yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Randy Acker, and I'm a director here at the Disability Support Program for Community Services, and I've been here for a number of years. Previously, I was involved in what we would have called transformational projects, and I would have led a few of those. Some of them would have had a technological component, so I'm happy to share some of our learnings from that. But Currently, what I'm working on right now is I'm the provincial lead for the closing of the facilities across the province. So it's a major undertaking as a result of the human rights remedy that most recently was handed down. And there's a lot of effort that needs to take place over the next few years to achieve the inclusion into the community. And I'm excited to think that we might be able to take full advantage of some of the digital solutions that our participants could, could benefit from. So I've been watching the forum all day as well, trying to learn some things. And some of these questions you pose are really exciting ones to respond to.
Great. Well, we look forward to hearing more about that for sure. Charles, how are you making out now? Do you have?
Well, I don't have a headset anymore. Can you hear me now?
I do. You know, Charles, I go through headsets like crazy. As I said earlier to you all, I can't wear them. They just go. All right. So where are you coming from, Charles? What's your role with Neil Squire? And what have you been working on lately?
All right. So I'm the director for technology program and services, which also include occupational therapy at Neil Squire. I do the Maritime region, focusing on Nova Scotia, PI, and New Brunswick. My background, like I've been here for a long time, since 2002, but my background's always been IT. And I started in the 80s with computers, of course. The first part of my journey was to train people on how to use computers, and anything from, like the productivity applications, get the certification even. And then I moved on to the system engineering and programming with the Windows NT back then, and of course when Novell NetWare. And for those of you that remember those names, then you've been around. I started focusing really in a assistive technology side in 2002. That's when I moved to Neil Squire, right? And at that point, then basically I formed a group of people. We call ourselves the solutions department, because we're trying to find solutions to be able to get individuals that require assistive technology in the workplace or in education to find the right technology that they can use and be productive at it. I'm not a gamer. I love technology. I've been working with technology all my life. I choose not to participate in social media. So to me, the choice of technology is very focused on what I do. It's got to have a purpose. It's not just for entertainment for me, and it's not just for, keeping in touch with family. I can do that by going and visiting and all that stuff, right? So there's other ways that I like to do that. I am a ham radio operator, though. So, I do have a amateur radio license, which demonstrates one of my hobby that keeps me close to technology. And for me, I think that demonstrates that the communication, effective communication, is important to me, right? Because that's what we do when we use the technology like that for communication. The Neil Squire is a good fit for me. I've been here since 2002, as I said. And one of the reasons I'm still here and I love my job is because of our mission. All right. So we use technology, knowledge, and passion to empower Canadians with disability. That's the mission that Neil Squire has and always has since the beginning. And I'm not going to go into history today of Neil there, but if you have a chance, go on the website and read that. You could see how it started with technology with Neil Squire himself, and it's still about technology. And one of our main ways of, embracing that mission, I guess, is that we ensure effective and appropriate use of technology. That's one of our guiding principles. So the effective use and the appropriate use as well. So those two words to me, means a lot in terms of which technology, how you're going to use it, and what should be allowed. Like we have a lot of talks about AI, but AI is a good thing. But again, sometimes it can be a bad thing, right? So I do have a couple personal goals. One is to remove the mouse from the equation. We don't need a mouse. It's not effective, and that's one of my personal goals. And the other one is to make sure that all level of government or community agencies, or even the public sector, or private sector, I should say, they collaborate more. Collaboration is such a key factor, and we need to do more of that. So that's another one of our goals here at Neil Squire.
Absolutely. That's what makes us such great partners. GEO is all about that stone soup, right? Bringing everyone in and doing what we're strong at. Thank you so much, Charles. And certainly, last but not least, is Amanda Hendrie. And Amanda's coming from the Nova Scotia League for Equal Opportunities. So, Amanda, a little about where you're coming from, what's your role, and what have you been working on lately?
Thank you. Yes, my name is Amanda Hendrie. I use she, her pronoun. I'm a young woman with purple peekaboo hair, so with glasses, so fun time for my hair. But yeah, I am the program coordinator for Nova Scotia League for Equal Opportunity, also known as NSLEO, or the lead if you're within the community and you hear that over the years. And we work on trying to improve quality of life for persons with disability through as many areas as possible, in the focus of systemic advocacy, trying to change the systemic issues that we see. And so a lot of it is having to connect with a lot of our partners through different sectors, the nonprofit, community, government, business, in order to kind of discuss disability issues and improve it, especially with the Accessibility Act, and work towards quality of life. So what I do as program coordinator is I tend to focus on the key initiatives that we are currently working on right now, such as Access Awareness Week Nova Scotia, which is a week where we celebrate what we've come so far, where do we need to go. That's the last Sunday of May, as well as the event for International Day of Persons with Disabilities, which is coming up on December 3rd, as well as help with the Quality of Life Index for Persons with Disability projects that we're working on. So all of that comes together in the core goal of trying to show what still needs to be done, what we've done so far, and center first voice into conversations to encourage understanding and awareness. So I'm also first voice by being deaf and disabled. So that's why I'm punching my ear every once in a while, because my hearing aid is refusing to work properly lately. So that is, I tend to have also the experience of having technology pretty much since the age of 1. So I'm used to the assistive technology space, as well as trying to make events accessible through both virtual, hybrid, and in-person with technology as well. So yeah.
Thank you so much. We definitely look forward to hearing your input on our questions coming up. Before we get into those questions, though, a little bit about an experience that we had at GEO. One of our referral partners had reached out to us about a gentleman that they were working with who had been in a car accident, and it left him with severe brain injury. He was adjusting to living a new way of life with a severe disability, wasn't able to talk, and of course, was beginning to feel very isolated and disconnected to the world around him. Through our programming and our referral partner, we were able to connect the participant with a Chromebook and the software apps needed and all the technology that was required so that he could use his Chromebook to communicate with his friends and family, search for education opportunities, or, just enhance overall quality of life. So when we hear those stories, it really reminds us of the work that we're doing and the need for digital inclusion to be accessible for everyone. Sometimes when we're working behind the scenes, we don't get to see some of those, good moments that are happening. So it's always great when we get to hear those stories. So that brings us to our first question. Isaiah, I think we'll kick off with you. So from your perspective, how does digital inclusion or exclusion, as the case may be, impact people with disabilities?
So, in my opinion, digital inclusion is so important for people who are experiencing disabilities, especially people that I've had firsthand experience supporting, people who have developmental and intellectual disabilities. Technology and digital inclusion as a whole can really create a big difference in regards to their quality of life. I had the pleasure of working with a young man just a few weeks ago, actually, who has developmental and intellectual disabilities, has lived in a group home for most of his life, um, and just due to various reasons has never had his own laptop or his own cell phone. Um, and he came up to me one day and he said, Isaiah, I'm really struggling right now because um, I've been able to make friends at Prescott, um, but then I'm kind of struggling with being able to keep those friendships up once I go home at the end of the day, um, which is so valid, not having access to technology or to, the tools that you need to keep in contact with the people that you care about. It can be really isolating. Um, and so actually through GEO, we were able to get him his first ever cell phone. He's kept in touch with me. He's let me know that he's been able to text friends of his, to make phone calls. These things that um, can they've been able to help him overcome this obstacle. And because of that digital inclusion, he has a higher quality of life. But and the same could be said if we look on the other side of this coin. Digital exclusion, especially for Nova Scotians living with disabilities, is so detrimental. I can bring up the example that I raised earlier, regarding the two young women who just now were able to get access to their Proloquo to go app. Like these are women who have lived most of their lives struggling with the with how they are able to communicate with folks in their wider community. People that have a rapport with these women, are we've over time we've been able to find ways to communicate really effectively. But if they want to go to Tim Hortons and order a coffee the same way that you or I might would, that's where they really start to struggle. And so that's why it's so important that we try to keep Nova Scotians living with disabilities outside of this realm of digital exclusion, because it doesn't matter what disability someone might be facing. I can almost guarantee that there's ways that we can help solve that problem, and digital inclusion can help out in so many ways.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, the exclusion happens in ways that, a lot of people don't recognize or see on a regular basis. Amanda, what about you? Would you like to weigh in on that? How do you think that digital inclusion or exclusion is affecting people with disabilities?
And the way that I view digital inclusion, it's kind of like there are like more options. So, but in some ways it also can limit options. It really depends on the individual's situation. So, for example, like I remember growing up and still not having touch yet because it wasn't common to do it. Like you still had the landline phone and still call. So then you couldn't really access them and you can hear. So the technology was quite limited. But now it's like more streamlined into like there's more options that are typically mainstream availability compared to exclusive availability where it required a more huge financial barrier to access. So that's starting to like improve. So instead of, okay, I need to add this into my tech in order to do it, or add, equipment into my home, it's starting to do it as we shift into the digital space. And it also provides more options in terms of what we do in advocacy work, where we're trying to work on improving policy on a local and national scale, even international as well. There's more option for connection to get more perspective, because we don't necessarily have to like meet up in one place, try to get everyone in one place and be like, okay, what do you think? because the technology allows us to get it through email, through phone calls, through just, surveys. So the digital inclusion kind of allows us to not only for people to have more options to participate, but also to kind of connect in a way that like hasn't been done in the past. But digital inclusion still like heavily present, as there's like a shift where like because we live in such a digital age, it's just become the only option is for digital. And that's also a bit of concern, as not everyone, as we share from story, have the tools, have the platforms that are accessible enough to be able to access it, such as website accessibility, the use of AI too independently, whereas to the point where no one's keeping the accountability of accuracy in their mind. And so those type of digital exclusion do exist as well, in terms of accessibility point of view, as well as just like plain access in terms of, do you have cellular access where you live? Are you able to get such equipment due to financial barriers? And then the assistive technology of it, does it fit to your needs and your lifestyle of where you are, and are you able to maintain such of it? So there are kind of both sides happening that we kind of have to be mindful of. Like when we're improving one side, we need to be mindful of maybe other barriers that do pop up when we are trying to improve digital exclusion. Because, for example, with technology, like assistive technology, one, they're great until they break. But two, they're great when the platform allows the connectivity. But when it doesn't, and it doesn't consider, okay, can you connect to it? If you can, does it ensure privacy, and does it ensure timely information, equal access, and the same experience as a person who doesn't have to go through the same hoops? And that's where like the digital exclusion kind of comes in. So while there's more options to connect and participate, like for example, for events in COVID, we're able to share, but then also keep hybrid to allow people who don't feel comfortable being in places due to their disability, or feel like they access better because they're able to, for me, for example, connect my devices into the computer and I get better audio compared to in person. Those type of experience also pops up. So it's a matter of like the options that are available to people that have increased, but it's also being mindful that if we're pushing in that direction, what are the other barriers that do exist as well? That's happening with the exclusion of digital.
Right. Yeah, just because it's there, don't assume that everyone's got the access to it. And then, that loss, as you said too, when you have it and the technology breaks, right? So, that could certainly be a concern. I love though that it's able to give us a louder voice, I think, when we're, doing things and we're connected, Brad, like you said, instead of having to meet in person, we can use these online platforms to express ourselves. Charles, what are your thoughts?
I think
How are
I'll
people impacted?
continue on what Amanda was saying there. Like some of the barriers that are created with the inclusion of our digital environments is that people are kind of relying on assistive technology, which is great because I love assistive technology. It's what I do. But sometimes you got the best assistive technology and you go into an environment and it's just not accessible. It still doesn't work. And is that the fault of the assistive technology? And sometimes, no, it's not. It's the accessible content. Like the people that are creating documents, but they're creating it for one type of learners or one type of worker. They focus on the visual aspect too much. They forget to be descriptive. The screen reader will not read it because it's an image and there's no detail. So all that stuff. So we need to focus that accessible content is a barrier. We need to educate people how to create accessible content. That's an important aspect. The environment, make sure that our environment, I'm looking at the employment field here. And then when you log into your computers, because everything's getting so locked down now because of all the scammers and all that stuff. So we're doing a good thing or trying to protect as much as we can. But sometimes, like if I'm using biometrics, those features are being removed. because somehow it's not as secure, right? So if I'm a person with a disability using that biometric feature, then I'm going to lose it, right? Stuff like that. So we got to consider that. The constant updating of our computers every day, I mean, I got a feature, I know where it is, I used it in the past, it worked a certain way, I know what expected, and then I get there Monday morning and my computer update over the weekend, it's not the same feature at all, or worse, it's gone,
Right.
it happens
Yeah.
all the time. And so those are things that we need to consider a lot. To me, the digital environment is like it's a complex discussion. I don't think we have time to go too much in detail today, but it's one that's worth having. Like the amount of features that we're putting on apps and software, it's way too much. Pop-ups, notification, hiding the scroll bar. I don't want my scroll bar to disappear. I like it where it is. I don't like transparencies. Those are
Right.
creating problems, right? And
Absolutely.
there's more, but I'll keep it brief because of time
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, so being mindful that, I mean, we have to make sure that, our improvements are truly improvements for all, right?
Right,
Like,
exactly.
you know. Randy, did you have anything you do want to discuss and how you're seeing, the inclusion or exclusion of digital and how it's impacting people? Oh, you're on mute.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you
Yeah,
now.
yeah. I'll give an example as I listen to this. It's so informative. I led a project called the Cell Phone Project. How original! When COVID was happening, and our goal was, and I think the ADM and Matt talked about it just briefly this morning. Our goal was to include people using this digital device who were feeling isolated. All these wonderful, what people have identified how devices can work. Because we wanted our participants to stay connected to communities and feel safe. And from a numbers perspective, we gave out over 900 phones to individuals. So, check that box. And we did an evaluation and we got some good results. But one of the things that we learned was that it wasn't full digital inclusion because people didn't have the skill set to use the devices. And we didn't have people to support them to use the devices. Service providers didn't have the time or their own skills. And, so it was a great learning for us. And we had to quickly adapt with some sessions and some handouts and basics like passwords and email, retrieving your voicemail. Like we had an assumption that people would be able to use this tool and they would be digitally inclusion would just be forthcoming. And in reality, it wasn't there. So we've taken that learning and used it in all go forward kind of approaches. And we now make sure we start with the participant as opposed to start with the device. And so I just wanted to share that because it was, all well intended, but there was some stress out in the field when the phones landed.
Right. And I think, Randy, if I'm not mistaken, some of those lessons that you folks have learned is what sort of helped us develop in the Digital Champions program in recognizing, that skills is so fundamental and is definitely that third piece to digital inclusion, right? It's not enough just to have a device or just to have a connection. You have to have those skills. And of course, the skill sets change when we're talking about people with barriers or, regardless of what they are, right?
Yeah.
Be it ability barriers or language barriers, so it's so important. Thank you guys so much for that. Amanda, what are you seeing happening related to digital inclusion and disability today? Is there anything, big changes that you're seeing happening?
With the Accessibility Act, they just recently developed the Committee for the Information, Communication, and Technology Committee. I believe that's the full name. Anyway, but it's now starting to get into the standards for Accessibility Act. So now we're able to get to the point where we're starting to see people talk about it. They're likely start doing consultations in the future so that we can develop the standards in which that can improve these types of situations, to improve access where like businesses are using that technology, the way that government communicates, which a lot of it has been developed over the years as the Disability Act came in, especially with COVID having to push that through, for example, with needing, cut for the captions and ASL interpreters, which you now see pretty commonly among the government of Nova Scotia websites. And so those types of information is now starting to become a little more accessible compared to previous times, due to the fact that we need to update those standards to include it. So we are seeing that the work is starting to happen that allows these type of things, but we'll see how it goes because it's only in its initial stages. So as more consultation comes through and what feedback and suggestions they get over the course of the consultation and evaluation will be kind of how informed, as long as how to interact with other standards and improving the quality of life of persons with disabilities. So a lot of the kind of what I'm seeing is that like we still have ways to go, but there's kind of like a starting approach specifically due to COVID, as that kind of push everyone online and show the urgency of needing it in order for people to get information. Same with national disaster events such as Hurricane Fiona, kind of pushes that need for not only how to receive information, but like where people can provide information to ensure their safety. So the increase of vulnerable members list for fatalities is starting to pop up. That's kind of allowing people to kind of feel more safe in a sense when digital access is no longer there, or if they need a different type of communication that's not phone call, they can get that type of information. So those type of things are starting to pop up, which is exciting, and it allows not only improvement in the how we interact with digital technology and the digital space, but it is also quite limited, and it does require people being aware of the knowledge. So it still requires a level of awareness, education, for example, as Charles has mentioned with the platforms, like knowing the documents and like having those type of alt text, making sure you're still providing information for every sense, making sure plain language, like those type of things. For personal, like we have to make those decisions when we provide content as well, and it does require an education process for us knowing how to do it, but that's also on us. It's not something that can be quickly materialized without us taking the initiative to do it as well. So there are some improvements in that sense, and we're seeing information and advocacy from policy development in a sense, and being shared digitally and wanting feedback digitally. So there's kind of like trying to adapt to allow people to share the information. It gets further across the department, but then also having the understanding that we still need these spaces to talk about it, because not everyone has access to the same technology or be able to go into the platform as easily to understand the information that's provided. So it is also like up to like NSLEO providing those type of information as much as possible. So for example, the Canada Disability Benefit just finished their kind of a feedback process back in September. But before that, we were kind of creating events, kind of encourage people to talk about it, telling them how to get onto these platforms, how to share information, which luckily due to the process that has been, email options, and potentially for some services outside of the Canada Disability Benefit, there's a bunch of service happening where they allow in-person for people who don't have it as well. So trying to make sure those options are still available, but also because of the shift that wanting digital is easier and faster in a sense of like for people receiving the information, not necessarily people given the information. That doesn't necessarily mean it's easier, but from a data point of view, it can be easier to receive it digitally, and then it just goes through the process automatically for them. So it's important to recognize that, like, while it can be easier for you to get this information, doesn't necessarily it's easy for someone else to give you the information. So those type of changes are kind of happening all over the place. but it still have to understand from like what from a person with a disability interact, the steps to get there, and how to potentially improve that to consider the same experience as people who do not live with a disability.
Right. It's so important to make those things aware, right? So, I mean, it's, it's not enough to say, well, the access is there to the information. It is that two-way communication, and we need to be aware. And I know Charles and Amanda, you've both mentioned how, forms of communication and those images are, you can't use all the adaptive technology with those. And I don't know that everyone thinks of that. So it'll be good when we get this act going and we can, have a standard sort of criteria for everyone to use when they're creating platforms for people. Isaiah, did you want to weigh in on that? What do you see happening related to digital inclusion today?
Yeah. So on my end, I've noticed an uptick in the last few years as more folks that we support who have disabilities gain more access to digital inclusion. We've noticed more interest in pursuing community employment, which is a really interesting trend. I'm very excited about it. We've been able to track number of seats in our pre-employment programs are steadily growing. And a very common trend among those people that we're seeing joining these programs are, that they have access to things like cell phones and Chromebooks and laptops. And I think that's because they're able to use these skills that they're learning about. And instead of having to, wait to look on a job bank to look at employment opportunities, here when they spend the day with us, all of a sudden they don't have to wait for us. Like if you have your own Chromebook, you're able to do that kind of research on your own, which has been so great to see so many of the people that we support show such excitement towards pursuing this. But with that, though, we've also noticed that the more that intersecting identities, we've noticed that Nova Scotians with disabilities who have intersecting identities, such as someone living with a disability who also lives in poverty, there's an even greater need to access digital inclusion, right? And unfortunately, the more of those identities that overlap, the greater that need is. And so now it's we're at a point where we're trying to figure out how we can make sure that no Nova Scotian living with a disability gets left behind. We want to make sure that these opportunities are available to everyone, but that's not going to be able to happen until we make sure that everyone has access to digital inclusion.
And not just the technology, but the resources, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah. It's that's another thing that I've noticed. People are asking for like training sessions or classes to be held, and sometimes on things that we might not have even thought about. Over the last couple of years, I've taught classes on how to use Facebook, how to make a profile on a dating app. Like as digital inclusion grows, so does someone's sense of identity and how they want to explore the world around them, which is so incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. We're seeing people grow, right? I mean, the more we know, the more we grow. Charles, what do you see happening in today in relation to digital inclusion and people with disability?
Well, I think AI's gotta be mentioned here as well because I mean it's opening up the doors. I mean AI is nothing new really because I mean when we first built technology for NEO back in the 80s, we had a controller connected to an Apple II computer, and the controller was intelligent enough to be able to convert Morse code into text on the screen. that's kind of was a bit of AI if you think about it. But now the possibilities are limitless, like the things that AI does, it's unreal. And it does create a bit of problem because the proper use of AI is important here. And of course, if we don't use it properly, then it's going to be banned in certain areas, and that's going to create problem for people with disability because a lot of their assistive technology is relying on AI. Right? It's built in, like the OCR connection, OCR concept, that's AI.
Right.
Spell check, that's AI, all that
Yeah.
stuff. The companies that are building technology are getting better too. Like they're putting a lot of built-in accessibility feature, which I like to see. You buy a laptop now, you don't need to go out and spend money on the screen readers because there's one built in. Is it the best one? Well, in 2024, it's pretty good. And if you were to say that 2 years ago, people would say, no, it's not as good as JAWS, for example, whatever. But it's getting much better, and it's actually quite good. And it's not just screen readers. There's all kinds of features. But that's happening. It's happening with Mac, Windows, Microsoft. It's happening with Google. It's happening with cell phones. So it's in the iPad, tablets, and all that. So this is good to see. In
Absolutely.
terms of standards, it's happening now, but it's been happening before. So the act is great. I love the fact that now we can actually try to come up with some rulings, some regulations, perhaps. But we can use some of the existing or not standards because they're not standard yet, but guidelines that's been created for a while, like the W3C accessibility standard. That was designed for people creating website, right? There's a lot of good information there. This is what you should do. This is what you should avoid. Okay, so that's one of the guidelines that was created. There was also the POUR principle guideline, I think they called it. POUR is the acronym that means perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. It provides text alternative. It provides keyboard accessibility. Enough time to do something, right? So there's a whole concept on that people need to look at before creating something new because there's a lot of it already created. So even CNIB back then created print guidelines, I think. For text. And that's good information. Although we don't do as much printing as we used to when we're talking digital inclusion, we're still working with text, and it's still, whatever they created back then still applies. So let's learn from those good things that are happening and let's just keep moving them forward. That's what I like to see.
Yeah, and make sure that they don't, take step backwards because I believe the standard for font was like a 12 and now you're seeing that kind of the default is 11. So let's make sure that those things aren't happening. Let's advocate to make sure that we're holding on to those, like you say, the guidelines, which aren't even quite standards yet.
No. Yeah.
Right. Randy, how about you? Do you seeing anything happening in today's world in relation to digital inclusion?
Yes. I think we're experiencing it in a project that we're working on, or a program we're working on with our partners at Seniors and Long-Term Care called Shared Services, where we're helping, or we have a mandate to move individuals out of long-term care facilities if they're not seniors, and they've ended up there. We're helping to create a transition for them to move into the community. And smart technologies or voice-activated appliances, those kind of solutions are providing these participants with a sense of freedom and independence. And so they're not having to be, someone else doesn't have to open the curtains, someone else doesn't have to turn off an appliance. And so it seems quite straightforward, but for them, it gives them that sense of complete independence over a number of things that while in the institution, they probably relied on others to do. So there's no end to what that can be used for as those technologies continue to evolve. And so we're using these learnings to try to bring as many as possible to the participants as they move out.
Yeah, absolutely. Like smart homes are a great thing, for people that are, struggling for more independence, right? And I mean, really, that's all we all want, right? Is to be able to be independent. So that's, yeah, absolute great point on the smart devices. And as you said it, I'm thinking, oh, I hope mine don't go off during the session. I was like, oh, please don't say their name. Please don't say their name. Um, that's wonderful. So now we have time for another story, real quick, and then our final question. We'll get to a door prize. We just wanted to talk about, a wonderful opportunity we had to help a family. It was a single mom and three sons, aged 13, 11, and 8. And all of the sons had disability of some sort, with the 11 and 8-year-old being autistic. So our partner reached out to us because, of course, there was a lot of technology that they had access to, but it wasn't quite working for school. And they were finding, of course, with online learning and all the changes that happened since the pandemic came, that they were struggling. So we worked with the partner and we got them connected with iPads and Prolo Quo so that they were able to communicate better. And we found some assistive technology to help all three children thrive in school. And it was such a wonderful feeling. But then we didn't want to stop there. And we thought, well, what can we do, to help mom as well? So we were able to provide a laptop for mom to assist and an internet connection to assist with working from home when needed. So again, it was just another wonderful success story, and how, like with you all, when you find the solution, right? There are solutions out there to be found for just about everything, and when we work together, we can find those solutions. So that was a great moment for us. It was a real good experience to be able to help this family. And so now we're going to get down to the final question. So Randy, I'm going to look at you first. So what do you think are some promising opportunities for Nova Scotia related to digital inclusion and disabilities?
And I like this. There's a piece in that about how we could do better, and all of our examples that of our learning have helped us try to do better in the next round when we start working with people. But I would say that's the thing. We need to start with the person and what their needs are and what their desires are. And the remedy, the human rights remedy, is mandating that we close the larger facilities and whatever. But we're going to do it one person at a time. And so we'll be building support plans with those individuals and their support network. And so we'll have a chance to call out what technologies would be of value to them, and then try to secure those that will work for each of those people, each of those individuals, as opposed to just doing cell phones for everybody. Like, this will be something that will be unique for each individual person. And I think that's the success, or that's where the recipe for the success is, having that part of the conversation when we say, what would it take to live a good life in the community for you? And just bringing that conversation forward and calling it out and having people reflect on that. So I think that's our promising opportunity as it relates to the disability support program.
Yes, absolutely. Right. Like, I mean, the same thing doesn't work the same way for everyone.
Right.
Charles, what about you? What do you think are some promising opportunities coming our way?
Well, continuing with the assistive technology is key. We need to do that, but we need to do it in the right way. For example, there is a difference between an IT professional and an AT professional, right? Like, to me, I came from IT, so I know what IT is. I understand their job description and so on, but it's a bit different when we work it with clients. You have to have knowledge of what's going on. You have to be able to understand that. And it's not something that IT professionals can do. AT is a specialty in itself. So I think we need, as a province and so on, is to put the emphasis on the right thing. We need to accept that technology is the future. And by this I mean in school. We need to allow to use technology. You know, we need to be able to accept the fact that, yeah, there's going to be somebody using AI. There's going to be somebody using a spell check and all that stuff. It is the future, you know. There's no way around it, really. In fact, the people that are professionals and are pushing AI, you know, everybody's talking about AI replacing humans in their work. But the reality right now is the people that's got AI skills are going to be replacing the people that don't. Right. So to me, the most important message I can leave here is that we need to train individuals now on assistive technology and AI and everything else. And we need to do it at the school age. Let's not wait. Perfect example with the Pro Logo to Go. People are getting that way too late in life. That should have been given to them very early. You know, you mean they've spent 12 grades, I don't know how many years of their life without the ability to communicate properly. You know, then they get to that point, it's almost too late. You know, it's never too late, but they're going to be behind the rest of the individuals, right? So that's very important. So mind shift, we have to change the way we think about, you know, everything about our education, about our workplace, and all that stuff. It's the biggest challenge, but now's the time.
Absolutely. Even from something as simple as allowing students to, you know, take pictures of the notes on the board as opposed to, you know, requiring everything to be handwritten, could make such a phenomenal difference in someone's education. Amanda, what are you seeing that seems promising in the future of digital inclusion with people and disabilities?
Yeah, we've been moving towards kind of like that more emphasis on collaboration. So like the ability to collaborate, the ability to get into different stories, to keep informing what still needs to be done, what still needs improvement based on individual experience with the different barriers. So that kind of help push forward, like, okay, we need to consider this barrier because it seems to be keep forgetting where other barriers. It's like, okay, we know the guidelines sit. We need to get it to people so that they can learn how to use it. So like, for example, like there are municipalities that are really starting to get their work going with the Accessibility Act. They're doing lunch and learn. They're trying their hardest to learn as much as they can to try to improve their process. And try to improve the community members who have disabilities to still be able to access the services, still be able to connect to the community as much as possible. So this is kind of like a growing thing. It's like the more that we learn, the more that we try to improve, and that's kind of like the attitude towards it that's very promising. But it is still have to be the recognition that like there are individual needs as well as universal design. So while universal design is definitely incredibly important, there's also lifestyle, individual experiences, individual culture that kind of influences our decisions and what we need in our day-to-day life. That's important when connecting digitally and the use of assistive technology that is best for the person. So all of these things are like the push towards trying not only include universal design, but also kind of the need to be like, hey, this is a person, this person has their own needs as well. So the fact that these conversations are happening, it's quite good, but we still have a long way to go, and that's why conversation around access awareness and talking about disability issues, we still continue to do that work, and we still continue to try to push forward policies that kind of consider those needs that tend to be either dismissed or just not considered when talking about a first voice experience. So that's kind of what we try to do from a policy systemic level to try to keep these conversations going. So yeah.
Yeah, it's so important. Like, you know, it's easy to forget the individual, right? It's so easy to say that, oh, well, this is there. So, you know, go. Well, it doesn't work for everyone. And I'm glad, you know, that we could be a small part in the conversations that are happening as well. Isaiah, did you have anything you wanted to weigh in on that? I'm mindful of time. but I do want to hear from you.
Yeah, no, I'll keep this short and sweet. Uh, but I think as we, as Nova Scotians, move closer towards digital inclusion for all, it's just so important that we keep in mind that we keep this information on how to access this tech, how to access this digital sphere that we're kind of ushering all Nova Scotians towards. It's so important that we keep this information as accessible to everyone as we possibly can. That means making sure that information is available in plain language, making sure that information is available to folks who are visually impaired, who are hearing impaired, people who need to absorb information in a different way. We need to make sure that that information is available to everyone.
Absolutely. And it's great that you sort of went there, because just to note that GEO Nova Scotia will make sure that the websites for everyone is accessible, and that you can get the information and see everyone's websites and the work that they're working on. So thank you everyone for your input today. I really appreciate it. Before we go, just one last reminder, if you do have a question, throw it in real quick, but we're very short on time. I have a door prize to announce though. So just a reminder, it is a $250 gift card from Orchard, one of our partners, and they are Canada's largest provider of refurbished phones, and so that's very exciting. And our winner today is Winter Cullen, joining us through Autism Nova Scotia. So congratulations. We'll be reaching out to you and let you know how to sort of go about collecting that prize, or how we'll get it to you. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. We have like 1 minute left. So I do just want to remind everyone to please check the websites that we'll share with you later from all of our panels, and the resources that are available there. And please give us your feedback as well. There'll be a QR code or a Menti link in the description of this panel, and I believe it might be going out into the chat as well. So thank you all so much. I would just keep going. I would keep talking. So I really appreciate you all being here today and all the work that you're doing.